गजानना हे गजानना, गजानना हे गजानना, गौरी नंदन गजानना, शिवनंदन जय जगवंदन, शिवनंदन जय जगवंदन, विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका, विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका, विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका, मूषिकवाहन, परम निरंजन मूषिकवाहन, पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, पतिपुरीश्वर पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, गजानना हे गजानना, गौरी नंदन गजानना, गजानना हे गजानना, गजानना हे गजानना, हे शिवनंदन जय जगवंदन, हे शिवनंदन जय जगवंदन, विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका, विद्या बुद्धि प्रदायका, परम निरंजन मूषिकवाहन, परम निरंजन मूषिकवाहन, पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, पतिपुरीश्वर गजानना, गजानना हे गजानना,
beautiful smile. For some, it was a gentle reprimand.
Om Sri Sai Ram. I offer my most prayerful salutations at the divine lotus feet of my beloved Mother Sai. Sai Ram, everyone. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you to the 6th Samarpan Session of Toronto, organized by the alumni of Sri.Sanjay Sahni Institute of Higher Learning. I have the privilege of introducing our speaker for this evening, Sri.Sanjay Sahni. Brother Sanjay is well known to many Sai devotees as he has spoken of his experiences with our beloved Swami on many occasions. I had the pleasure of knowing him from our university days and have witnessed his utmost dedication and love for our dearest Swami. Brother Sanjay had the great fortune of joining the Sri.Sanjay Sahni Institute of Higher Learning in 1982, where he completed his bachelor's and master's degree in commerce. He was a blessed recipient of gold medals from the divine hands in both bachelor's and master's degrees. Since then, Swami chose him to serve in his institutions in various capacities. Brother Sanjay served as a warden of Sri.Sanjay Campus, lecturer, principal, and director of Brindavan Campus, and currently serving as the controller of examinations since 2016. I had come to know that he was adored by his students for his love and affectionate guidance. His students have also spoken highly about his standards in teaching and testing. To this day, my wife, who is also an alumnus of Anantapur campus, freezes when she hears the name of Brother Sanjay Sahni, who was known for setting the toughest exam papers during her university days. Brother Sanjay Sahni was one of the speakers from his college days, handpicked by Swami to speak in his divine presence. He was the only one to highlight Swami's weakness in Swami's presence by stating, prayer is man's only strength and God's only weakness. On behalf of the Toronto alumni, I now invite Brother Sanjay Sahni. Brother Sanjay.
I offer my loving pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, revered elders, brothers and sisters. I extend my heartful greetings from Prashanthalyam to all the devotees in Toronto and all others elsewhere who may be seeing this session live or maybe seeing it later. I also thank our alumni at Toronto, the Samarpan team, for giving me this wonderful opportunity of doing Sai Smaran. We just had beautiful bhajans and Darshan of Swami through the film that was just broadcast. Bhagwan says that there are, as per tradition, 16 kalas of an avatar, 16 facets of any divine incarnation. And the last two characteristics are Nama and Rupa. Nama means name and Rupa means form. Wherever his name is taken, wherever his name is adored, no matter which language it may be, and wherever his form is installed, it could be a photograph in our worship room, it could be an image of the Lord in any temple or church or whatever. Wherever the form of the Lord is there, his presence is automatically there. So for this beautiful start to the Samarpan session, we invoke Swami's presence amidst us. We are in the Guru Purnima week, and the first message that Bhagwan gave as a 14-year-old boy when he threw away his books and he said, I am leaving, my devotees are waiting, I have work to do, I cannot stay any longer. The first message he gave to mankind was Manas Bhajare Guru Charanam Dustara Bhavasagar Taranam. This ocean of samsara, of existence in the world, is very, very difficult to cross. And therefore, the message of the Divine Guru is worship the feet of the Guru. Worship the Guru who is waiting to ferry you across this ocean of samsara and redeem us from the cycle of birth and death once and for all. I remember once Swami had called the faculty of our Anantapur campus of the Sri.Sanjay Sahni Institute of Higher Learning. And in the course of the conversation, Swami mentioned, he said, see, you all have entered this samsara sagara, and having entered it, once in a while you will keep drowning. But there's nothing to worry. I will bail you out. Whenever you drown, I will bail you out. So look at his supreme confidence. He is very, very confident that in our day-to-day activities in life, there will be situations in which we will face challenges and we will meet situations where, Swami, there's no one other than you to bail us out. So he is supremely confident that we'll be getting into such situations. And he is also supremely confident that he will be able to bail us out. So that is the message of the Divine Guru who came amidst us, talked to us, lived with us, behaved like us, but then at any point of time in his presence, suddenly would recognize that he is not like us. He is a cosmic visitor who has come into this world. As Swami would often say, you know, the avatar is like an aeroplane. And the aeroplane you may see in an airport and you may be mistaken that it is a terrestrial vehicle. But actually the real place of the aeroplane is in the skies. It comes down on earth to take passengers high up into the skies, into the heavens, metaphorically, and all those who have the ticket. And what is that ticket? Swami said, that ticket is my divine grace. So it was the fortune of our lives We don't know why God showered that compassionate grace on us, that in his lifetime we got an opportunity to know him, to see him, to touch him, to talk to him, and to experience his abundant love. Talking about the moments of revelation, I'll just share two incidents from Koday. We were with Swami, and one day the evening bhajan session got over. We returned to Sai Shruti and we were sitting around Swami. And that day in the bhajan hall, one of the senior devotees of Bhagawan, Jindrani, had been a speaker. So she had shared her experiences with Bhagawan. And in his conversation with Jindrani, he asked, Jindrani, how old are you? And Jindrani said, Swami, I am 5 months younger to you, she said. And hearing her spontaneous, innocent reply, all of us sitting around, we burst into laughter, because how many people can really talk to the Lord in such a manner? And Swami also laughed. And then the laughter died down. And then Swami, in that silence, he said, you are not younger to me. You are younger to this body. I am ageless. In that fraction of a moment, suddenly, Swami uplifted all of us to some celestial heights, and we recognized the presence of the divinity at whose lotus feet we were all seated. On another occasion, this was upstairs in Sai Shruti and just outside Swami's bedroom. And suddenly Swami picked up one of the members of our group. He was a little short boy, and Swami asked him, come, stand next to me. And then both of them, Swami and this boy, were standing next to each other, and Swami asked, who is shorter? And this boy said, Swami, I am shorter. And we were very amused by the humorous scene that was being enacted in front of our eyes. But Swami is not the person to belittle any individual, especially exalting himself and putting somebody else down. That was never Swami's nature. But this was a small episode which Swami enacted, and now came this divine declaration. He said, I am smaller than you, he said. And we were all taken aback by that statement. He said, Swami, you are definitely taller than him. How come you are saying that you are smaller than him? And then Swami uttered, Anoraniyan Mahto Mahyan. I am smaller than the smallest. I am bigger than the biggest. And in that moment, again, suddenly we realized in whose presence we were in. So it was, as I said, the fortune of our life to have come to Swami. And my first bhavam or feeling that I would relate to Swami was as my guru. In fact, I remember it was, I think, 1983, and Swami had selected some students to speak during the Prashanti Vidwan Mahasabha, during the Dasara festival at Prashantilam. So in the course of that, we had the fortune of some interactions with him. One day he called us to the backstage of Purna Chandra, and we were four of us. Swami was asking each one what was the topic he would speak on during the Dasara. And so when it was my turn and he asked me, what is your subject? I said, Swami, I would like to speak on the topic Sai, our Sadguru. And immediately Swami, the teacher that he is, he said, who is a guru? And I was foxed by that question because I knew that this is not something which I can get away with by just translating the word guru to as a teacher. And we all realized that we need to keep silent, and Swami himself will explain to us. And there's no better explanation than Swami could give. Anybody could give on a particular topic. So I felt silent, and then Swami said, the word guru is made up of two syllables. First is gu. Gu stands for darkness. And ru is one who removes. So the guru is one who removes the darkness of ignorance. So each one of us is drowned in ignorance of the reality that we are. And Swami is the guru who opens our eyes to our own reality. It's not that he is going to teach us something which is not already known to us. It is there deep embedded in our hearts. He is the one who opens our eyes and awakens us to that truth. Then he asked me, who's a Sadguru? And I was a little more familiar with this term because of the association with the literature of the saints of India. So I said, Swami, Sadguru is one who takes us across the ocean of samsara, the world, this cycle of birth and death. And Swami was satisfied with that explanation. And then came this eye-opener. He said, Sai is not only the Guru, not only a Sadguru, but he is the Jagat Guru. He is the Guru of each and every person in earth. And in this context, I recall what Swami told our first Vice Chancellor, Professor Vinay Krishna Gokak. He was a follower of Sri Aurobindo before he came to Bhagawan. And one day in a conversation, he asked Swami, he said, Swami, what is the difference between Sri Aurobindo? Sri Aurobindo was a great saint of India. What is the difference between Sri Aurobindo and you? And Swami said, Aurobindo is Vyaktinath. He is the master of individuals. He has come to lead individuals in his, whoever comes to him, whoever gets associated with him. I am Loknath. So he is the master of the individuals, and I am on the same mission, but my mission is the whole universe. And whoever, wherever they need divine succor, divine guidance. So therefore, on the eve of Guru Purnima celebrations, I thought I will take up some teaching of Bhagavan and try to elaborate, share some thoughts on my understanding and my experiences related to that. It was the first day I stepped into the Prashanti Lilium boys hostel. The next day, our college was to begin in the university, I had come to join for undergraduation to Prashantlim. And there was this beautiful photograph behind the warden's table hanging on the wall. And next to the photograph was this saying of Swami. In this college, the medium of instruction is discipline. The first, second, and third languages are love, service, and sadhana. Now, these are lines taken from a discourse to students and faculty at Brindavan way back in the early 70s. Swami was addressing the Brindavan College, and in that context, he made the statement. But only in later years, I realized that this was not just a statement, it's a very powerful and a very significant statement. One day, Swami was traveling in the car, and he had as his companion Professor Nanjundaya, who was the first controller of examinations of our university. And in the course of the conversation, Swami made a wonderful revelation. How he runs this cosmos. See, imagine how can one individual simultaneously at the same moment run the whole cosmos. So Swami said, taking an example from our own society, he said, see, for example, you have a government running a country. Now you have the Prime Minister or the President, and he has a cabinet of ministers. Now in the cabinet, there are portfolios allocated to different ministers. Some portfolios the Prime Minister or the President will keep for himself. So they are attended to by the Prime Minister himself. Whereas the day-to-day activities of the other portfolios are handled by the respective ministers. So Swami said, I run this cosmos also in a similar manner. There are many ministers who take care of various portfolios relating to the running and operation of the cosmos. But there are 3 departments which I have reserved for myself. And these 3 departments, which if anybody has anything to do with these 3 departments, they deal directly with Swami. They deal directly with divinity. The supreme divine cosmic operator of this whole universe. He said these 3 departments are love, service, and sadhana. Anybody who loves me, and when he said loves me, it is not just this form of Bhagavan Sri.Sanjay Sahni Baba, which we had the wonderful opportunity to interact with. Loves the Lord in any form, in any name, in any conception. They are dealing directly with Bhagavan. He said, if people love me, I love them, I reciprocate that love. And I'll come to that a little later. The second is service. Anybody who is associated with selfless service, again, this is my department and I deal with it exclusively. And the third is sadhana. Anybody who is associated with any spiritual austerities, activities, it could be bhajan, it could be dhyanam, it could be tapas, in whichever way, any form of sadhana, I deal with it personally. So this first message of Swami, which I got on day 1, when I entered the Warden's office in Sri.Sanjay Hostel, is a reminder to me personally of important ways in which we can connect to the Lord, connect with Bhagavan. But for that to happen, the first thing is we must have hunger for God. See, Samarpan is a session, of course, for Sai devotees, certainly, but it is also a session for all those who are hungry for God. Today in Prashanthalayam, there are so many new people who have never heard of Swami, who have never known Swami earlier, and we meet them in the ashram. And what has drawn them here is the Samarpan sessions and the other satsang sessions which they have had an opportunity to see and hear on the social media. So, therefore, what draws us to the Lord is hunger. We should have hunger for Sai. We should have hunger for the Lord. And Swami has said, if you don't have that hunger, I will create that hunger, but I will see to it that that hunger is also satisfied. So Samarpan is an opportunity for us to do Sai Smaran and in some small way satiate that thirst for the Lord, satiate our hunger for the Lord. See, just as there is food for the body that we need food for the mind, but there is also food for the soul. And Samarpan is one activity which is food for the soul. So let me start with the first portfolio, which Swami says is directly under his charge, and that is love. What is love? Love is selflessness. In fact, the very first teaching Swami gave me when I entered the portals of this university was a very fascinating, I never forget it, and I have quoted it in Swami's presence also when I have spoken in his presence, and I have never tired sharing it with our own students on various occasions. It so happened that when we went to meet the warden, my father and myself, one day before the college was to start, he looked at my selection letter and he said, come in the afternoon, come in the evening, and I'll admit you. Now that created some personal difficulty. I did not tell the warden, but after we came out of his room, my father and myself discussed, because my father had to catch a train. He thought he would complete all the proceedings in the morning and he would leave by the train in the afternoon. Now with this development, that was not possible. So I assured him, don't worry. There was a friend of mine in the hostel, so I left our main luggage with him. And I told my father to go ahead with his plans and leave. And in the evening after the bhajan, I would make my own way to the hostel. So in those days, Prashanti Nilayam was not so expanded. The last building, I think, at that point of time on the western side was the West Prashanti 5. So I was staying in my friend's room in West Prashanti 5, and I had just one piece of luggage. It was my bedding, the holder, which I had to carry to the hostel. And I was not aware that in those days we didn't have cycle rickshaws or auto rickshaws. Maybe some porters were available, but I was not familiar with that, where they would be available. So I carried my own bedding from West Prashanti 5, and it was not too heavy, but still heavy enough, and huffing and puffing reached the bus stand, which is located opposite the ashram gates. So I put down that bedding on the ground and I was taking a breather. And just at that time, the evening bhajans were over. There were two small boys, white and white. They came up to me and said, brother, are you going to the hostel? And I looked at them. I said, yes, I am going to the hostel for admission. And then they asked me, can we help you? I didn't know those boys. I didn't know who they were. They were, in fact, half my height. And I was a little feeling awkward of taking their assistance, but my need got the better of me. And I said, okay, both of you all carry one end of the bedding and I will hold on to the other. And so that's how we started from the bus stand and we reached the first gate of the college in front of the primary school. And as we reached that gate, two bigger boys, they came forward and apparently later I came to know the first two students were from the 7th class. In those days, even 7th class students were in our senior hostel. And the senior boys were from the 12th class. They said to the younger boys, they said, this work is too much for you all. You all take rest and we will help to carry this luggage. So don't worry. So they voluntarily took the luggage from those two youngsters and they were carrying the one end and I was carrying the other end. That's how I entered the portals on day one of the Sri.Sanjay Campus hostel. There was an episode I had read many years ago in a magazine. People were traveling on a boat in some river in Europe, and somebody fell overboard and apparently didn't know swimming, and the boy or the person was about to drown. So seeing that sight, quite a few people jumped into the river to rescue, and they finally brought the person overboard on the boat. Somebody saw a gentleman on the boat and said, are you Mr. So-and-so? He said, yes. And then he asked him, are you not the world champion in crossing the English Channel the maximum number of times? He said, you got it right. I am that individual. And there's, why is it that in spite of being a champion swimmer, with worldwide reputation, when that person was drowning in the waters, you did not jump into the water to rescue him? And this was what that champion swimmer said. Sorry, we were not introduced to each other. I asked myself that question on day one when I did not know anybody in the campus, in the university. Who is it who introduced those two youngsters to me or the 12th class students to me? And yet they came forward to help somebody who was in need. And I recall these beautiful words from the Bible, and I take it as the first teaching of Bhagawan, even as I stepped into the university. And these words of Jesus are, I have loved you, now you must love each other the same way. And once I remember, Swami I had shared this also in Swami's presence. Once I had not gone to Kodaikanal with Swami, but some group had gone, and one of our teachers in Brindavan, when he returned, he said, no, in one of the sessions, Swami narrated to us your story of day one, how you entered the hostel and people came forward, boys came forward to carry your luggage. And Swami was telling all of them See, this is how all of you all should be. And in fact, the teacher was in charge of inducting boys on admission day when freshers come. So he put a team of senior students who would, because parents were not allowed to go beyond the entrance of the students' hostel at Brindavan. So after that, the student had to fend for himself. So this teacher, remembering what Swami has said, he would put a team of senior students as soon as somebody would come to carry their luggage to their respective rooms. And it was for years together we had that experience. When new students would be asked to speak in the hostel dining hall, they would remember that I didn't know anybody, but there was this brother who carried my luggage to my room. And there would be a thunderous applause from the whole student community. In fact, I remember in 2010, we had the National Assessment Accreditation Body representatives coming to our university. They do the ranking of universities in the country. So in one of the interactions with one of the departments in Brindavan, the faculty in charge was making a presentation. And suddenly, one of the experts, professors there, he said, "Do you have ragging in your college?" And immediately I intervened and said, "Sir, when new students join our university, the senior students carry their luggage to their rooms." And this person, he said, "I am so moved by what you have said." So love manifests itself in so many ways, and we have seen that in Swami's personality. If you ask, who is your role model? Swami was a role model. Just by being with him, we picked up some things which, I think it would have taken lifetimes for us to imbibe, to understand, and then to integrate into our day-to-day life. But that is what, when you get divinity as your guru, he demonstrates personally how we should be. And just by being with him, you say, if this is what Swami likes, if this is what Swami does, then this is how I should also be. And in that context, both love and service go together. Love is not love if it does not manifest itself into service. But let me spend some time on this first portfolio of Bhagavan, which he said, I deal with directly. And in this context, we must try to understand that when we talk of love, it is not the way we understand love in our human associations and interactions. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, a great saint of India and the guru of Swami Vivekananda, who became world famous later, especially in the western part of the world, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to give this beautiful differentiation between man's love and God's love. He said, human love is something like this. Supposing somebody needed some help and you helped them out. You gave them the necessary succor, timely support for 99 occasions. For 99 occasions, you have gone out of the way and you have helped that person. On the 100th occasion, when that person makes a request, for some reason, you are not able to oblige, you were busy or whatever were your constraints, and you happen to tell no. You know what that person will say or how he will react? Rascal, one thing I asked you to do and that also you could not do for me. For 99 occasions in the past, you have gone to his help, you have provided him support. On the 100th occasion, for some personal reasons, you could not do that. But he does not remember those 99 occasions. He gets so upset that you did not come and help him out. That is the nature of human love. It could be, in our very close circle, family, friends, or in the organizations or the offices or wherever. But this is the nature of human love according to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. But he said God's love is not like that. God's love, and he gave this explanation. For 99 occasions, one fellow has been criticizing, abusing the Lord. On the 100th occasion, having abused him continuously for a long period of time, on the 100th occasion, some thought arises in his heart or mind that he should turn to the Lord and seek help, seek his support, or pray to him. The Lord's love is such that he does not remember the 99 occasions you have criticized him, 99 occasions you have abused him. That 100th occasion when you turn to him is sufficient for him, and he rushes to your rescue. That is divine love. I remember many years ago as a teacher and an administrator, our students were our teachers. From each one of our students, we learned something. Just as we learned from Swami, from our students also, each one of them has taught us something. So there was this boy, very mischievous, and at times he would also say something to his friends, speaking about Swami, which was not appropriate. And I had kept him on my radar. I said, one day I will have to handle him appropriately. And that day came when it so happened that when it was time to go for darshan, the lines of the students had already left for the mandir at Prashantlim, and this boy was late. So then I decided today is my day, and when he returns to the hostel, I didn't want to stop him from going to the mandir. I said, when he returns today, I am going to haul him up, and he should become a more disciplined student and should become in more tune with the place. And I shared it with a wing teacher of that student. But immediately the teacher restrained me and he said, please don't do it. I said, why I shouldn't do it? And then he explained that that boy at that juncture was going through tremendous mental agitation and trauma. An aunt had written a letter to him, and the letter said there was some dispute, I think, between his parents, and sometimes, we become too emotional, and that is why Swami would always say that too much emotion is not good in any context. And the mother got upset, and she apparently tried to poison through food his father. But the aunt said, your father survived and he is safe. So imagine, for any child, the parents are like the two most powerful pillars, the strongest support for any individual in life. And if one pillar is trying to push out that pillar, how would it be? It would be tragic, and it would be tremendously psychologically impacting that individual. So when I heard that, then I was shocked, and I said, then I must keep quiet and I will not tell anything to this boy at this point of time. But see, the most amazing thing for Swami was when this boy faced that crisis in his life, in spite of all the mischief he had done before that, which Swami apparently was definitely aware. Swami started speaking to him in the mandir when the students would go for darshan. And almost every day, Swami would talk to him. Of course, the other people will never know why Swami is speaking to an individual. But I could put two and two together, and I recognize, see, what you and I as elders would not have been able to do for that boy, Swami, at that critical juncture, forgetting, the boy knew for sure what all he had said, what all he had done. But at that point of time, when he found that loving, affectionate interaction with Swami, his mind turned, his behavior turned, and I can say for sure that he became a very good boy in the eyes of the teachers. And one day he came to me and he said, "Sir, I want to talk to you." So I took him aside and I asked him, "Tell me." He was not even willing to sit on the chair. He sat on the floor and he said, "Sir, I'm getting lot of negative thoughts and bad thoughts. And I'm feeling so miserable because Swami is showering so much of love on me. And right in his presence, these thoughts are assailing me. And then he confessed, for the last 3 days, I've not been able to bear this. And I have been hungry. I have not eaten any food for 3 days." Of course, I consoled him. And in my own way, tried to advise him. But I also took the opportunity. See, all this that is happening to you is because of your cultivating friendship with these wrong thoughts over a period of time. And that is why when this time of grace has come on you, these thoughts are coming. And I consoled him, it will, like passing clouds, it will not be there. It was not there yesterday, it is there today, it will not be there tomorrow. That's how Swami would many a time advise us and help us to come out of our difficulties. The next day, we had gone to the mandir and we were seated in the mandir. And suddenly Swami said, "Warden, come here." So I was not sure what Swami is going to say. And I went up to the front and Swami asked, he pointed to this fellow. He was sitting in the first row of the student line. He said, "Do you know, this boy has not had food for 3 days." And obviously the boy would not have told Swami. This was his divine revelation moment. And he asked me, "Do you know? You're the warden. Do you know?" And I said, "Yes, Swami, I know." And he was surprised. Swami was surprised. "How do you know?" Of course, everything he knows. And he did not want to probe further. And nor did I have an inclination to share more in public. But the point is, both for the student and for me, it was another revelation that Swami is with us in all our moments, watching us, listening to us, hearing us, and he is actually the Guru within. We have to only turn to him, and he is always ready to come to our rescue and give us that strength which this world cannot give. So, because as Krishna says in the Gita, "Anityam asukham lokam imam prapya bhajasva mam." Anityam, this world is transient. For example, today we are in these pandemic times, and all that we assumed, all those assumptions have gone haywire. Everything has become topsy-turvy, and I'm sure that it is the same story all over the world. But the only thing which is stable is, so it is transient. The world is transient. Asukham, what gives you joy today? For example, you love cakes or you love sweets and you have an extra or double, treble share today, and tomorrow you get a stomach upset. So what is the cause of the stomach upset? The stomach upset, the cause is that you had too much of cakes or sweets or whatever the previous day. So what gave you so much joy the previous day, the same thing has become a cause for sorrow the next day. So when a child is born, the parents are so happy. Supposing the child passes away in the presence of the parents, when parents are still alive, how much pain and sorrow it gives to the parents. The same child was responsible for our joy when he was born or she was born. But the same child, when, say, has a premature death, becomes a cause of sorrow. So that is the nature of the world. Then what is the remedy? The remedy is, having entered into this world which is transient, having entered in this world which can give us only temporary joy, if you seek permanent bliss, if you seek permanent peace, then there is only one shop in the world where it is available, and that is God. And that is why Krishna explains, Imam Prapya, having got into this world which is transient and the source of temporary joy only, the solution is, catch hold of the feet of the Lord. Offer your love to the Lord, because He can take us across any challenge and any love. And His love is not just related to this life, His love is across lifetimes. So that Lord needs to be worshipped, needs to be adored. And this samskar, or this tendency, or this practice has to be instilled in us right from our young days. And this is what is the heart of Satyasai education, whether it is in our schools or in our university, or whether you take the Bal Vikas, or as we call in the international scene, we call it the SSE or EHV. So the heart of that is to develop that love for the Lord. Because what nobody can do for you, even long after the parents are gone, the Lord is still going to be with you, and He is going to be your strength, and He is going to be your support. And He is very, very, we have seen it with Swami. His love is amazing. To see that interaction that Swami had with students. Once I remember, we had come from Brindavan to Prashantlim. It was, I think, Guru Purnima time. The first visit of Brindavan students, once the new students join, is the Guru Purnima festival at Prashantlim. So our students were seated in the mandir, and Swami came out, and he opened the door, and he saw this Brindavan student sitting in the first row, and from a distance he was smiling, and he was taking his finger and saying, "Hey," and we could just see from a distance this conversation going on. And then when the Swami came close to him, he whispered something to him. He got up on his knees, and Swami whispered something to him, and his heart sank. Because the next thing Swami said, "Hey, Warden." And the Warden of the Brindavan Hostel, he rushed forward. And immediately, this boy was shivering. What is going to happen? So later on, when we came back to the hostel, I asked the Warden, "Sir, Swami called you to the front. What is it that he was telling?" He said, "This boy, I think he has done some mischief. Something between them and between Swami and him transpired. But Swami did not tell me." So I was very curious. So I called the boy later, and I was his teacher. And I called him, "Hey, Swami called you today. What happened? What did Swami tell you?" And he was a little close, so he confessed in private. He said, "Sir, I just wanted to share with you because you have asked. One day when I was in Brindavan, I was fresh, and especially life for a student in Brindavan is such that everything that they need is available in the campus. So it could be the college, the hostel, the ashram. So everything is available. Only when they need to go to a hospital, they need to go outside the ashram." So it was several weeks, and that was not the kind of life that he had led in his hometown. He would move around, go wherever he wanted. So he was feeling a fresh student, feeling a little uneasy. So one day he said, at that point of time, he said that this is what he did. When it was evening time, time to play, he just quietly slipped out of the college gate, and it seems he went to the canteen that was located opposite the college, and he went and had a cup of tea and maybe some snacks in the canteen, and then came back again stealthily, quietly into the college compound, and he was exhilarated because I have done something that nobody knows, and I have gone outside the campus, and what a celebration of freedom, sort of. When we are young, we have all those kinds of ideas. So till he thought nobody knew, till that day in the mandir, when Swami comes up to him and tells him what he has done, and then calls the warden, and his heart is frozen. He said, if Swami tells the warden, I am going to be finished. But though Swami told the boy, when the warden came, Swami did not whisper one bit of what had transpired at that point of time to the warden. And for that, the student was so grateful to Swami. See, this is how Swami would build an intimate bond with the students of his university. The boy said, it was so foolish on my part. I was afraid of the warden. I was not afraid of Swami. I was not afraid that Swami knew it, because I knew that Swami in his compassion will overlook it, will forgive me. But I was petrified if my warden would come to know. And this is the tragedy of man today in the world. He has lost his fear of God. And because of that loss of fear, you should not be fearing God. We should love the Lord. Once somebody in Swami's presence said, I was born into a God-fearing family. And immediately Swami corrected the speaker. You were not born in a God-fearing family. You were born in a God-loving family. One need not fear God. What we should fear is sin. To do something which will take us away from Swami, take us away from God. And that's why one of the most important learnings in the Sai education system, and we would often underline it for the students, is ask yourself in any situation, what does Swami want me to do? What does Swami want me, or how would Swami be happy with my conduct or my conversation or my behavior in that particular situation? And you will never go wrong. So the boy said, I was afraid of man, but not afraid of God. What foolishness on my part. So that was, Swami's love with the students. On another occasion, I remember I had come from Brindavan, and it was time for me to return. And Swami on day one had said that he would give me something before I leave. So it was my last darshan in the mandir, and Swami came out of the interview room, and in those days, he was staying in the Purna Chandra auditorium. So he came out of the interview room in the mandir, and he moved down the slope of the mandir, and he crossed the area where the primary school students normally sit in the ladies' side. And then he was at the turning. He turned into the last stretch before you leave the Sai Kulant Hall towards the Purna Chandra. And suddenly he made an about turn. And he came, and the ladies spontaneously broke into laughter, because that was Swami. Love my uncertainty, Swami would say. It's not a mistake. So they were all expecting that Swami will walk down as usual, but suddenly Swami made a about turn, and he came back walking all the way back to the mandir. And as he was climbing up that slope of the Prashanti Mandir near the interview room window, he looked at me and he called me. So the moment he turned towards going inside the interview room, I got up and I rushed him. And to my utter amazement, I found that Swami had written a letter to a student at Brindavan, and he said, when you return, you give this letter to that student. And so I put it in my pocket so that when I come out, it doesn't look prominent or it's not visible to anybody outside. But when I went and gave it in hand to the student, you can imagine the exhilaration. Students would often write to Swami, and Swami at one point of time, he also told us, he said, see, when you write letters to me, it's a double blessing for you. Why? Because when you are writing a letter, at that point of time, you are thinking of me. You are thinking of me, and it's a blessing for you. When I received the letter, actually here, the moment we have written it itself, the letter is already known to him. And so many people have shared that experience with us. But he said, and we have seen it with Swami in our own eyes, when he receives the letter, he would open it, and with so much of curiosity, he would read each letter. He said, when I read your letter, and at the end of it, you have written your name, and I read your name, at that point of time, I am thinking of you, and so it is again a blessing for you. So, therefore, it's a double blessing. Thinking of him when we write the letter, and so students would often write, and I was an eyewitness that apart from the other letters that Swami would write to students in general, on this particular occasion, I found that he had written a letter and he wanted me to carry that letter. And I felt blessed that I was a messenger of that love, carrying that letter of Bhagawan. But that student would never know the manifestation of love, not just in writing the letter. Swami apparently forgot giving the letter to me. He had gone halfway in the ladies' side darshan in the hall where the people were seated, and suddenly he remembered, oh, that letter I have not given to this fellow. And he came back, hurriedly walking, and the only purpose was to hand over the letter. He gave that letter and again walked out and went off to Purnachandra. So the selfless love, why should God do that? But I'm just giving an instance. It's just an instance, an example, an illustration to show you take one step towards me, Swami would say, I will take 1,000 steps towards you. You shed one tear for me, I will wipe 100 tears, 1,000 tears of yours. Just try me, try God. People don't even have the inclination to try. It is such an important life skill as far as Satyasai education is concerned, which we impart to all our students to develop. And Swami has said that devotion is a plant of slow growth. So that is why he would often remind us, start early, start when you are young. Start early, drive slowly, and reach safely. So through all those interactions with Swami, we were witness to that selfless love that he embodied, and a little bit of that rubbed on to us as well as teachers in our association with students. And if any affection students have for their teachers in the university or in the school, it is because of that love bond which was characteristic between Swami and the teachers, Swami and the students, and the same thing spilled over on both the students and the teachers, and they also would relate to each other in the same selfless manner. That's what, for example, yesterday I was talking to one of our MBA students, passed out. She was showing me her appointment letter. Parents were thanking us for the wonderful education. And she also expressed, said, I'm so grateful to Satyasai Institute and all my teachers. She's a student of the Anandpur campus, for the wonderful education we have been given, especially in the last 1 year with this pandemic, when she was seeing the kind of support that students, her friends have got in other universities, and she saw what kind of support her teachers have struggled and made it available. She was saying that, sir, I am so grateful to all of them and to Swami. So I felt very happy that Swami, if our students even today feel that, even in the midst of pandemic, they feel that, then our teachers have definitely earned a little space in your heart and continue to occupy that space in your heart, because for Swami, his students were his property. Coming to the second aspect of service, as I said, love and service go hand in hand, and selfless service is what Swami taught all of us. And I remember in various occasions, Swami underlined it. It was once in the good old days, before Prashantilayam Gram Seva started for the university and school students. We used to have on the Rathotsavam day, the 18th of November, a few days Swami's birthday, this massive assembly of Narayan Seva in the Hillview Stadium. And Swami also would come, and we would distribute the prasadam, food prasadam, and then the clothes to the elderly and the handicapped people, needy people. So that was for many years our experience. So it so happened that it was the Rathotsvam day, and Swami had seen off the start of the procession at the Gopuram gate of the ashram, and he had gone into the interview room. The moment he went into the interview room, all of us got up and we rushed to the Hillview Stadium, because sometime later Swami would be coming and the Narayan Seva would begin. So after some time, Swami opened the door, and he was a little surprised because he found the 8th class students sitting there. All the other students and teachers had left. Only the 8th class students were seated in the mandir. So he expressed surprise. He said, why are you all sitting here? 8th class students were the youngest students of the hostel at that point of time. They said, Swami said, do you not know that today Narayan Seva is there? Why are you all here today? Now, they said, Swami, all our senior brothers have taken away all the service opportunities. They have not given us any duty at all. Then Swami heard that, and he said, if nothing else, at least go and serve the Narayanas water and earn punyam, Swami said. Imagine, when the students came back to the stadium and they said, Sir, Swami has asked us to serve water to all the Narayanas, and because it is Swami's instruction, we can't disobey it. So immediately we redistributed our duties, and water serving was quickly handed over to these 8th class, and with what josh, because nobody thought of us, nobody gave us a chance to do the seva, and Swami thought of us, and Swami has given us this opportunity. It was such a wonderful experience, and for me it remains a very precious memory that when it comes to seva, age is no bar, gender is no bar, caste is no bar, no religion, everybody is eligible. Seva is your birthright, Swami would tell us. And that kind of an opportunity he bestowed that day on the youngest members of the student community. So seva was very precious for Swami. And as I said, it has also certain connotations, especially seva that our students would do in the campus. They may not every day or throughout the year go much outside, but at least in the campus, they had wonderful opportunities. In fact, the whole daily life of the student has so many service opportunities. Somebody works in the store, somebody in the bakery, somebody in the serving in the dining hall, somebody in the dispensary, somebody in the audiovisual maintenance. So all these activities students are engaged, and they're all helping each other. And that's why the motto of Sai residential hostels and Sai educational campuses is that each lives for the other and all live for God. That is the fundamental underlying principle of the residential system, integral model of education that Swami has gifted to the world. It is worthy of emulation. Anybody, anywhere in the world can adopt it and experience the joy of what it is when teachers and students stay together and in an ambience of selfless love and selfless service. So on that particular occasion, Swami blessed. I am reminded of another instance. This happened post 2011. There was a student, he finished his undergraduation at Brindavan, and he was apparently going to join the army. He had that aspiration. So he discontinued. He had an option to join post-graduation, but he was wanting to join the army, and therefore he had gone for the first round of selection. He got selected. He's waiting for the second round. And there was some blood donation camp in his locality. So he went to donate blood. And usually there is a precaution that they take whether the person is eligible to donate blood. So when they were testing his blood, they found that he was down with hepatitis C infection. And with that kind of an infection, he would get disqualified in the further testing that would take place for the army recruitment. So he was totally dissatisfied, demoralized. I give up my opportunity to do post-graduation in the university so that I wanted to serve the country as a soldier, but now that opportunity is gone. So he was distressed. His mother also was distressed. And one day, when she was so worried, in her dream in the night, Swami appeared. Swami manifests and relates to his devotees in so many ways. And that was one way in which he would connect. So in the dream, Swami came to her, and she remembers her child's predicament. And she said, Swami, this boy is down with hepatitis infection, and now he will not get selected for the army. So she was very worried. So Swami then told her something which is very startling. He said, don't worry. And then Swami told her, one day your son, in Brindavan, between the hostel, which is located in the ashram, and the college, there is a small drain, not a small drain, it is a reasonably sized drain of the village. And there, for the students' easy transit, we have constructed a small bridge over the drain to go across. This boy, one day, he was crossing the bridge over the drain, and he found that a little puppy had fallen into the drain, and it was yelping to glory. The mother was not to be seen anywhere. He was yelping to glory. And at that point of time, this boy, he went into the drain, picked up that puppy, and brought it to safe land. And he said, this has happened not once, but twice. And then Swami said to the mother, in my place, of course, the whole universe, the whole cosmos belongs to Bhagawan. But it is also a fact that places like Prasantalam or Brindavan, Swami has spent a lot of his physical time. And so he said, in my place, and he was referring to Brindavan, which also can be related to any of Swami's places like Prasantalam as well. If anybody does anything good, its beneficial impact will multiply, and it will come to their succor in their hour of need. So for what your son has done in my Brindavan hostel, in my Brindavan ashram, on that particular day for that helpless puppy, I assure you, there will not be any problem for your son. And the mother woke up and she was in ecstasy, and she shared this conversation with her son, and the son had forgotten. Son had forgotten what he did, and apparently nobody was a witness to what he had done. He himself has forgotten, but one person who will never forget is the Lord, and His eyes are always there on us. And this is so. Both mother and son rejoiced that morning. Some days later, he had to go for a medical checkup again. He went to the hospital and again got himself tested. And the doctors this time said, we have antibodies of hepatitis infection in the body, but the infection itself is now no longer there. You imagine, one day you are down with that infection, and Swami just expressed that sentiment to that mother, and you go for a medical test and it is vanished. So the power of doing seva, and Swami would say, in fact, many of us who are associated with Swami's educational of our institutions in the ashram or trust or university, school, hospitals. One day Swami was interacting with the alumni of his educational institutions who are associated with the institutions here. He said, do not serve thinking that you're serving X or Y. Always have the feeling that you're serving me. So that was Swami's guidance. And for those who serve him with that, it's not easy. To serve the Lord is not easy. I'll just tell you one episode which took place on the first day of Gram Seva when it started here at Prashantlim for our university students. And I was allotted a particular group. I was a group in charge of a particular co-group in charge of a particular group of students and teachers. But on the first day, suddenly I was told that your duty is not to be with the group. You are the security escort for Mr. Chiranjeev Rao. So Mr. Chiranjeev Rao was the elder of our ashram, and he was, Swami had given him the duty to go to some elders in the village and personally hand his prasadam of food and clothes. And it was the first year of Gram Seva. The processes of Gram Seva were still being evolved. The next year, Swami changed that procedure. But in the first year, the direction was that we have issued some passes to the government, and they will identify the needy people in the village, and they will give those passes, and only those who have those passes will be given the clothes. The food is given to everybody. Now, there was some confusion in the distribution of the passes, so some needy people got left out, and when we were going around in the village, there was so much of anxiety, agitation. So I was there on the Shivalaya road with Mr. Chiranjeev Rao, returning from the mosque area, and there was this person, who started shouting at the top of his voice, and there were other people behind. And Mr. Chiranjeev Rao sir was standing on the road, and I was next to him, and this person became so emotional, and I was wondering, I'm supposed to be doing escort duty. What should I be doing in this circumstance? And I decided as a personal rule for myself, if he comes within 5 feet, I don't know what I should be doing, but I should do something. I should act. And sure enough, this gentleman in his emotion entered into that zone of 5 feet. And the next thing that I found was myself doing, I just rushed to him, and with an intention to separate him physically, some more distance from Mr. Chiranjeev Rao, our elder of the ashram, I just hugged him, and with that hug dragged him away. And that somehow diffused the whole situation, and that person also calmed down a little, and we were able to walk ahead, and we reached the Kalyan Mandap, and then afterwards we reached the ashram. That evening, Swami came out and he called some of us senior teachers into the interview room, and he was inquiring about how the day one of the Gram Seva had gone. And suddenly he looked at me and he said, "Good boy." And then others wouldn't have understood, but I put 2 and 2 together. Chiranjeev Rao Garu would have gone and told Swami, "Swami, this is what happened today, and this fellow was with me, and he only rescued me. So rescued means what? I am not some kind of trained person in security matters. I just went and hugged that person. And there's one elderly devotee that I shared in the ashram, this particular episode. Every time he meets me, he said, "Sir, can I hug you?" So seva has its own challenges, and we must use yukti. Swami has given to man the buddhi, and it's a sukshma buddhi, it is subtle intelligence. And even to do seva, even if it is in the name of Sai, we need to use the subtle intelligence, sukshma buddhi, how to handle a particular situation. We are going there to serve people, but we should do it tactfully. We may have our own directions, we may have our own guidance, and we need to keep that in mind when we do this service. So this is another very important portfolio of Swami, and as I said, age was no bar. He inspired all of us to join in his service, and in his proximity, we had ample opportunities. And the last part I will just touch upon is sadhana. Sadhana is anything which we do to connect to the Lord, to stabilize our internal connection with Him. Now, for different people, it could be different. For example, we have sages in the Himalayas. I remember a young devotee who was with Swami in Yajur Mandir in Prashantlayam. One day he was sitting at Swami's feet, and Swami said, "It has become very cold. It has become very cold," Swami uttered. And this person was surprised because Prashantlayam is not a cold place. So he was astonished of what Swami was referring to. And then shortly thereafter, Swami said, "It has become very cold in the Himalayas, and the rishis, the sages, the yogis there are finding it very tough." Imagine Swami is sitting in Yajur Mandir in Prashantlayam, and there are people around him, but he is seeing the problem of the people staying in the Himalayas. So though they were far away, but he was with them. In fact, he is with every individual all over. And for the Kali Yuga, the best sadhana is Nam Smaran. And I remember this happened in Shivam when Swami had gone to Hyderabad in India. And apparently Swami was taking bath. And one of the devotees who accompanied Swami was Kamadhani Garu. He was a Vedic sire of Prashantlayam, a great doyen of Vedas. So when Swami is having bath inside, our Kamadhani Garu was chanting the Vedic mantras. And there was this teacher there, and he was wondering, what a glorious opportunity. People go to a Shiva temple and they do Abhishekam to the Lord, to the Lingam. But here is an opportunity for Kamadhani Garu to chant the Vedas when Swami is having his own bath. So what a great blessing, what a great sadhana for this man. So shortly thereafter, Swami finished his bath and he came out. And he asked Kamadhani, in your opinion, what is the best way to get mukti? And Kamadhani, the great doyen of the Vedas, he said, "Swami, in Kali Yuga, the best way to attain mukti is to take the name of the Lord." And Bhagavan Sri.Sanjay Sahni Baba gave us this beautiful name of Sai, whatever, Sai Ram or Om Sri Sai Ram or, Sai Krishna, Sai Rama, whichever way you want to relate. And of course, one day I was sitting at his lotus feet and he said, for God, there is no name. Whatever name you call him by, he will respond. Supposing, now for example, I have a computer. He said, if you think this computer is God and call him computer, thinking that he is God, you respond, and God will respond. Is it like the tube light? If you say, tube light, God, please respond, please hear my prayer, God will, in whichever name, with what feeling you take, the name is not important. The feeling is more important. And Swami gave me the instance of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. He said, you see, Ramakrishna, for example, he said he was a palmer. And these are Swami's own words to me, and came out with such powerful impact. He said he was like a 0-watt bulb. Palmer is an ordinary person. So he's like a 0-watt bulb. And he kept on saying, Kali, 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 kept on taking the name of Mother Divine. And that 0-watt bulb became a 1,000-watt bulb. A palmer, an ordinary person, became a Paramahamsa, a God-realized person. So that kind of power is there in the name of the Lord. And I remember also Ramana Maharshi, another great saint of India. He asked some of his followers to come to Prashantlayam and see Swami. So they were very surprised. They said, Ramana is our master. Why do we need to go to Prashantlayam? So they asked, Master, what should we do? He said, you don't have to do anything. Just be in his presence and do bhajan there. That's all. Imagine, just you have to be in his presence and sing his name. And as I started, with the 16 kalas of the avatar, you sing his name, you take his name, and you are automatically in the divine presence. The divine, you don't have to send an invitation card to the Lord. The Lord, oh, my name has been taken. So 5 minutes before the session is to start, before the bhajan is to start, before the satsang is to start, he has already come and taken his seat and waiting for the proceedings to begin. So that is what Samarpan is all about. That is what we have been aiming to do for the last 1 hour. And I thank our Samarpan team of Toronto for giving me this wonderful opportunity of recollecting Bhagwan. I have never ever felt that God's story can be completely told. And as Khalil Gibran would put it, forgive me for beginning a story I cannot end. Forgive me for beginning a story I cannot end. This is a love story whose end is a love song in the wind. Forgive me for beginning a story I cannot end. This is a love song in the wind. So it's an endless story. The story of God and man. It's an eternal love story. And man will always consider this story as the greatest story ever told. Some devotee, senior devotee from Pathamandir days, was sharing with me. A person known to her in the mid-60s asked Swami, Swami, in the last 10 years of my association with you, our opportunity to interact with you, our opportunity to speak to you has drastically reduced. And she was so apprehensive for the future. And she asked Swami, Swami, what will your devotees be doing in the future? And then Swami said, after I'm gone, these devotees will be gathering in small groups and they will be sharing their experiences with me. They will be sharing whatever moments they have had with me, with each other. This is what Swami visualized and predicted more than half a century ago. And today we are seeing it happening all over the world. In fact, in the last 1 year, in the pandemic, it has multiplied manifold. So with these few words, I once again thank all our listeners in this narration. Please do not think that only the listener is blessed. I have always felt that the first beneficiary is here, the narrator. So it's a blessing for the person who narrates. It's a blessing for the people who are listening. and it is a blessing for all those who in future will also get an opportunity to listen to the experiences of devotees who lived with Sai, who interacted with Sai, and that is why sessions like Samarpan are so very precious for posterity. Thank you and Sai Ram.
Saram sir, thank you so much for your wonderful experience sharing with all of us. Om Shri Sai Ram. I offer my most humble and loving salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Bhagwan. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, Sai Ram to one and all. First of all, I would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Swami for giving us this opportunity to listen to his glory through this wonderful Samarpan talk by Sri.Sanjay Sahni sir. I would like to thank sir for taking his time to share his experiences and thoughts on the Samarpan session in spite of nature playing its part through showers in Prashantanilayam on the Sunday morning in India. It is indeed a blessing for both the speaker and the listener, as you rightly mentioned. I'm sure the episode regarding the first entry of his student at the hostel would have definitely rekindled the nostalgia of every student and the days spent in Swami's divine presence, experiencing his from him and his love from others, and also the opportunity provided by Swami to his to be part of Gram Seva. Also, the three languages, love, service, and sadhana, are definitely important for every devotee of Swami to internalize and follow. I would like to thank all the viewers who were listening to his glory, and I am sure this would definitely help a lot of devotees seek Swami within themselves and also others. I would like to offer my prayers to our dearest Mother Sai to grant good health and happiness to every living being in these challenging times across the globe. Samasta lokaha sukhino bhavantu. Jai Sai Ram.
शान्ति 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 जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय।